Welcome back to another episode of the On Deck Circle podcast. Jason, we did not get canceled after the first week, so let's give ourselves a round of applause. Dave, we really don't need you, and that is fine. And this is just a test to see if Dave actually listens to the show, because you know he will text us if he hears me shit-talking him every week. But let's get started with the cold open question of the week. If you forgot, Jason, I am going to ask you a question. Could be baseball related, could not be. And you have in time for the whole intro, and then you need to figure out an answer. Sound good?
Okay.
All right. So this week we are talking about catchers. I want you to tell me what food is equal to a catcher. Hit the music. Go. All right. What do we got, Jace?
That's a tough one in a short amount of time. But, going off the cuff, right off the top of my head, this may be a hot take. I don't know people's takes on food. But according to my takes on catchers, I got to go with something like a tiramisu.
You want to go with the dessert?
Yeah. Because it's like, I don't know about most people. Like, to me, I'm not a big fan of catchers. I'm not a big fan of desserts. Sometimes every once in a while, right? You got to have it. You like it. Yeah. So if I'm going to get it when I'm out to dinner or something, I'm like, I'll see if they got a tiramisu. You know, you don't want to have a catcher. You don't want to have dessert, or at least in my stance. I don't want to have dessert. I'm not a huge sweets person, but when I do, and I'm out to dinner, tiramisu equals catchers.
All right. I'm going with a meatloaf strictly by, it's just there. It's just like a bunch of stuff. It's good, but it's a catcher. It's like
a staple, right?
Yeah,
a staple in everyone's house. Exactly. You have to have it every once in a while. Yeah, so you have to have a catcher.
Yep, exactly. It's usually when my dad had to cook dinner when I was growing up. It was either hamburger helper or a meatloaf.
Hot dogs, maybe hot dogs and mac and cheese or something.
Yep, exactly.
I'm going down that path already, man. I'm going down that path already.
Fantastic. All right, Jason. You have to get out here quick, so we are going to get right into it.
That's right. We're going catchers. One guy we're higher on, one guy we're lower on, and we'll shoot everyone a prospect as well, because it's not Dynasty Baseball without prospects.
Exactly.
All right. Well, in normal fashion, we'll have you go first. And let's talk about. We'll start with some good news. Some people we're higher on.
All right.
To start off with. And so why don't you go talk about yours?
I'm incredibly grateful that our former host, Dave, is not here, because he would give me all the shit in the world for talking about JT Realmuto right now, because he'd say, Nick, he's like a top 3 Dynasty catcher, blah, blah, blah. But I don't care, because we need to talk about JT Realmuto a little bit more.
Let the people know.
Been so steady in Dynasty baseball for the last 5 years, and for a catcher to have 5, it might even be closer to 7, because he is 31, so he is a little bit older, but he is just so good and so consistent that it's amazing to just watch. So I'm just going to go ahead and tell you something. If I told you JT Realmuto had a 76 percentile speed, would you say yes or no?
I would say no.
You are correct, because it's 86th percentile.
Oh,
86.
Trick question. I see what you did. You set me up there. You gave me a loaded question. I like that.
But unbelievable speed from this guy. He steals bags. Last year, he had an awful first 3 months. Awful. Maybe not awful, but not JT Realmuto good. And he still finished with a 276 batting average and an on base of 340, which, for having such a poor beginning of the season and battled a couple injuries throughout the year, it is just amazing to see just how good he was in that second half. And he personally brought me I have him in, I think I roster him in every single Dynasty league that I have. So I'm just the JT Realmuto guy, and I hate every other catcher except for the prospect I'm going to talk about. But Jason, who do you have here for your catcher that you are higher on?
Couple quick things. I like that you brought up the speed. like you brought up the speed, right? That's, no one thinks about speed too much when we talk about catchers, which leads me into a question that I have for you.
Ooh.
So JT Realmuto came into the league, I believe, 2014, or he came in 2014, but I think his first full season was 2015.
Okay.
So dating back to 2015, who do you think has more stolen bases? JT Realmuto or Byron Buxton?
Byron Buxton.
Wrong.
Oh, I thought you were setting me up.
I was loading up myself. Since 2015, JT Realmuto has one more stolen base, which is actually surprising. He has 78 stolen bases since he's been in the league. Since 2015. So, yeah, that's pretty shocking. That's top 50 amongst all qualified hitters.
Can you tell me how many games JT Realmuto played compared to Byron Buxton?
Hey, let's not. I can tell you. It's actually, it's not. It's like 400 more, but still, you're talking about one of the fastest outfielders in baseball versus a catcher.
That just doesn't have legs that stay on him. Yeah.
You can't pull the curtain back on a loaded question.
That's semantics. All right.
Well, from one catcher that you're higher on to one catcher that I'm higher on, I'm going to go ahead and talk about Sean Murphy. He just came over in a trade from Oakland, which is just, we all know, is an abysmal lineup. I can't really believe, they're basically a quad A team over there in Oakland, which, Billy Bean's got some magic, trying to get some magic going over there. But yeah, so he comes over from Oakland, which is an abysmal lineup. Now gets this hit right in the middle of a stacked Atlanta lineup. And this guy, he's one of those maybe like underlooked or, guys, because he's in Oakland, right? Nobody thinks he's going to be like a top 10 catcher, but he's got an advanced eye at the plate. His .45 walk to K ratio ranks top 60 amongst all qualified hitters. He's had a WRC plus over 100 every year in the majors, which is kind of hard to do for a catcher. You can even see, I think you're going to see a significant increase in counting stats when it comes to Sean Murphy. Now that he's in Atlanta, right? He's going to be behind Matt Olson. He's going to be looking at definitely a big uptick in RBIs and also runs. It's just a way more stacked lineup. So I think, right now a lot of people have him probably like just inside the top 10. I think you can, he just got locked up and signed to an extension for Atlanta. So I think you can see looking at like maybe in the top 5, dynasty catcher going forward.
I agree. He's someone that I think more the common fan is going to figure out who Sean Murphy is this year, just because he's been stuck in Oakland.
Agreed.
A lot like the guy that we just talked about. He was stuck in Miami. And before the show, we were talking about that trade of Sixto and Alfaro for him. And like those were like quality guys at that time. And right. I think this time next year, I think a lot more of us will be talking about Sean Murphy being like in that upper echelon of catchers if you're going to be if there's an echelon.
Yeah, absolutely. Sure. Absolutely. Like I said, he's going to hit for some average, some power, increased counting stats. So, Sean Murphy is definitely someone that I'm more higher on going into 2023. Now let's jump on over to guys that we're lower on, and go ahead and run around with the guy you're lower on.
Yeah, so this is going to be incredibly fast. And do you know who is not incredibly fast?
Salvador Perez.
Salvador Perez, that is correct. If you had to guess how old Salvador Perez is, what would you say?
Well, I kind of know the answer because I looked at his Fangraphs page, but if I had to guess, I'd say like 28.
Okay. What if I told you he's only a year older than JT Realmuto? Because when I just looked it up, I did not look it up before the show because I was busy. But I was expecting like a 35-year-old catcher. He's still 32, and he moves like he's like 38. And I don't think he's going to be – everyone just points to his 2021 season where he hit all those home runs. And I feel like Dave was actually all over. He might have just had him in 30 Rock or like something. He had some relation to him. And people just keep pointing back to that, being like, oh, he's going to like get that back. Once you hit 40 home runs or whatever it was, you don't go back to it
48.
after you. Yeah, he or 50. Let's call
Round
it 50.
up.
And last year he had an awful season, and you don't go from 48 to awful back to 48. I think we're just going to have a bad catcher on our hands, which is fine. I don't care. He's in Kansas City. He's stuck there, but he's just not someone that I like. He's like technically a top 10 catcher, right? And that's not.
Oh, yeah.
I'd rather have like Jonah Heim. Is that how you say his name? For the Rangers? I don't know if he's still in the Rangers.
Yeah.
But that, like, just like, there's no point in paying for Salvi Perez when, like, you could just get someone else that's just as bad as he is later.
Yeah, I mean, you basically want Salvador Perez for his home runs.
Yeah, and if he doesn't hit them,
and even then, you're getting like 20, which isn't too extraordinary for a catcher. I mean, a lot of catchers will hit 15 to 20, 25 home runs. Yeah, people want to look at the 2021 season, the 50 home runs, but I think that was an outlier season.
1,000%.
The guy doesn't walk a lot, doesn't get on base a lot, doesn't strike out a ton, but when you're not walking, it's obviously more construed into the to see someone walk like less than 3% or less than 4%. So yeah, I mean, Salvador Perez, decent catcher. Again, I think the hype has gotten inflated from that 2021 season, and now he's still stuck on just another awful offensive team in Kansas City, who just keeps losing players. Not that Mondesi and Benintendi were.
Mondesi is gonna break out this year. Just wait till we talk about second baseman and short.
Yeah, but they just keep losing any valuable pieces. No more Michael Taylor, no more Andrew Benintendi, no more Albert Mondesi. They got Bobby Witt, but still, I don't think we see the counting stats or even those home runs stay at that pace that they were. I'd be lucky to see if probably hitting that 20 home run range again.
Yeah, which is fine, but it's just not where he is being picked is not worth. Like, you could find an outfielder that hits 20 home runs three rounds later, as opposed to just getting another starting pitcher instead of Salvador Perez. So it's, again, he's going to hit 20 home runs, but it's a matter of just the value in your drafts.
Yeah, absolutely. I totally agree. Good call out there. I'm going to go ahead and jump over to my guy. And this is everyone's new darling, Dalton Varsho. Getting traded over to Toronto here in this offseason. So a lot of people want to look at it and say this is an uptick for him, which I'm not going to deny. It is a little bit of an uptick for him. It's just somebody I'm lower on. Everyone wants to reign this guy as the next top 5 catcher prospect, or not prospect, but top catcher. He's already declining. His catcher eligibility is already declining. He only appeared in 18 games or started 18 games as a catcher last year for Arizona. Now being moved over to Toronto, Roster Resource has him slated in as an outfielder, left fielder. He may get, if someone gets injured, obviously he'll fill in. But I think the trend is already going that way where he will no longer be catcher eligible. There's a slim chance he might keep it here in 2023, but after 2023, I think going into 2024, you see him become basically only outfield eligible, which for dynasty leagues it's a big thing because he's only, I forget, but he's like his mid-20s. So that's one neck against him, right? He's already not going to be catcher eligible. He still strikes out a lot. This 25% strikeout rate ranks worst amongst all the other qualified catchers. If he did even qualify as a catcher, he doesn't. He didn't get enough innings as a catcher last year. He's super pull heavy. His pull rate last year was 55%. And if you look at the spray chart, all of his home runs last year were to the right side of center field. It's not a huge knack, but obviously if you're starting to go opposite field with your home run and your power, that's a good sign. He's not doing that. He's pulling a ton. All his advanced stats rank well below league average. XBA, X slugging. I think this guy was more of that catcher outlier that people were chasing because he was that catcher eligible, and he put up the numbers of an outfielder, right? So he's someone that I think you could, with the hype right now, if I'm going to Toronto, I think you could probably flip him right now and get something definitely valuable because next year the guy will be stuck with an outfielder, not a catcher.
Yeah. So when you texted me the name Varsho, I was just gonna say he's not a catcher.
Right. Yeah.
But yeah, I guess he does
He
have the
is.
ability currently. But Kirk is their long-term catcher. I think he's
Yep.
another like a doughy boy, which is fine. I love me a doughy boy.
Thick boy. Yep. Thick boy nation.
I think Varsho is like a middle of the. I shouldn't say middle of the road outfielder, but he's like a B- outfielder, which is fine. I love a B-. I'd love to have a B- in any of my classes. But for the price, I would definitely be flipping him now, thinking ahead, being like, I might lose a catcher eligibility this year, but next year he's no longer going to be that, and his value is going to go down. So 1,000% agree with you there, Jason.
Yeah, it was a little bit of taking advantage of just like everybody else in fantasy takes advantage of his catcher eligibility. I'm gonna take advantage of his catcher eligibility when we're talking about catchers we're lower on, because we know how catcher position is, so it's all super shallow.
It is all super shallow.
All right, well, let's jump over now and do some dynasty talk and get into some of these prospects. These are some prospects that we're just gonna do higher. We're not gonna do
we're not gonna talk mean to the kids.
Exactly. It's hard enough already to find decent catcher prospects. So,
yep.
Why don't you go ahead and talk to us about yours?
All right. We got Kevin. Is it Parada?
Yep.
Nice. All right. Sweet. So, do you know what my favorite phrase is for catchers, Jason?
What's that?
Bat first. Because that's the only thing that really matters to us in fantasy baseball is if the catcher can actually hit. And do you know who can hit, Jason?
Kevin Parada.
Kevin Parada, that is correct, sir. I understand it's rookie and low A ball, but I'm not going to cite college stats. But you know who hit a bunch of home runs? Kevin Parada in college ball. I think it was 26 his senior year. If I was 20-something, I read it. I did not write it down. But he slashed 275 and with an on base of 455. The dude gets on base, and that's very important in fantasy baseball, believe it or not, because that helps you get runs batted in, all that good stuff. And he has a bleep ton of power. So it's someone that I have not yet to get in any of my first-year player drafts, mainly because I'm not going to waste a first-year player draft on a catcher. But if I were to waste a first-year player draft pick on a catcher, he would be the number one I would pick. And he's on the mound. That's fun.
Last year in 60 games, he had 26 home runs and 88 RBIs for Georgia Tech. So ridiculous. It's metal bats, but still, I mean that's an insane pace. And yeah, power to the ceiling. So,
and that's fun for a catcher because but do you know who's also not a really good catcher?
Kevin Parada.
So he might be in the Dalton Varsho camp in a few years. But
yeah, we could be talking about him.
He has catcher eligibility. So,
and that's all that matters, right? When it comes to fantasy baseball, as long as they're eligible, we're going to put them in that lineup at that position. So
exactly.
All right, well, let me get into my prospect here, and I'm going to go ahead and talk about.
Never heard of
him. So this guy, Yainer, we're talking about Yainer Diaz, catcher from the Houston Astros system. Really jumped onto the scene actually in prospect circles. I feel like last year, came over from Cleveland in that part of that Miles Straw deal. But once he got in that Houston farm system, he really took off, especially last year. He did deal with a lot of injuries early in his career with the Cleveland system, so I can't really put a knack on the Cleveland system. But it seems like once he joined that Houston system, he really started to, get his stride going. Dating, back-to-back years. We've been in there now for 2 years, 2021 and 2022. He's had back-to-back double-digit home runs, and he basically had his career year last year. He shot up, a lot of the rankings. Started in Double A. In 2022, and then went on to Triple A, and then had a super small cup of coffee in Houston last year. I mean, when I say small, I mean literally 9 plate appearances. But when you look at his full 2022 season across all the Double A, Triple A, and then the 9 for MLB, he slashed 306, 356, slugs 542. That's 25 home runs, 51 extra base hits, 96 RBIs, 75 runs, and which was roughly a full season. He had 486 plate appearances. So, as you can see, not only did he have one of his greatest seasons of his career, he also was catapulting through those minor leagues, top minor league So yeah, I mean, I think this could be a guy that not a lot of people are talking about right now. He's not going to start this year, obviously in Houston. He still needs some seasoning to go. I would assume he gets down to starts AAA to begin 2023. See what happens. Right now they got Martin Maldonado. That's basically all they have on Houston's roster. So we'll see what they got. What he does. Maybe he forces their hand. We see him a little bit here in 2023. But I think if he can continue to perform the way he did in 2022 this year, we will definitely see him as a full-time catcher in 2024, barring any free agencies or anything like that. But I think this is a guy that's going under the radar for a lot of prospects.
All right, so we're going to play a game here.
Okay. I like games.
What player should Nick offer for Yainer Diaz? Just give me like a type, because we're not going to go through my roster. But
Okay.
I am currently have him in a deal, so I'm going to make 2 offers. One with an MLB player and one with a prospect. And we'll see what happens. We'll get back to it on the next show. Yeah.
I mean, I wouldn't be, throwing a ton at him just because we haven't seen him perform. It's like, again, it's a small sample. We've only got like 2 full seasons so far. But I think you can, I'd give away like a top 150, like 1 to 150 range MLB player.
Okay.
In that, I would say maybe an outfielder, someone that's on your bench, maybe. You got like a 5th or 6th outfielder in that
Jake
one.
McCarthy, someone we talked about last week.
Oh, that's tough. I mean, if you're desperate for catcher, I could see making that move.
I have JT Realmuto.
Oh, then yeah, I don't know if I'd go too much on him.
Okay.
I'd put some feelers out there. Maybe start with, maybe a draft pick, or if you've had this year's or next year's draft pick, see if you can get some sort of dart throw. I think that's what I would put him as, because I think he ranges probably in that like top 250 prospect. You know what I mean? Like he's not someone that's gonna be in that top 100 or top 150 prospect. So he's down the list more. So I wouldn't be willing to throw a bunch at him. But if you can get him, we're talking 2-catcher league, which I can't believe there's still 2-catcher leagues, but if you're in a 2-catcher league, I mean, I would definitely be acquiring him. But right, I would not be looking to throw
and see if he says yes.
What's that?
IKF for the Yankees.
I don't know. Yeah, I feel like that's a good. That's a good trade. I don't think as far as
just throw a prospect in and see what happens, like Noah Miller.
Yeah, that's like a little bit like a dart throw for him to get in return for Yainer Diaz.
All right, it was sent, and find out next week if I now have a catcher that I didn't know about until now.
Nice,
Jason. Have so much fun at swim lessons, buddy.
Thank you. I'll be sitting on the sideline, but yeah.
All right. See you, bud.
Later.